Tonight, we renew our resolve that America will never be a socialist country.
While attacking the government of Venezuela in his State of the Union address, President Trump emphasized socialism as a threat to the United States. It's one of several issues the president focused on in the address, and it could be the beginnings of a framework for how the president will shape his 2020 campaign. I want to bring back Eugene Scott and bring in Anita Kumar. She's a White House correspondent for Politico. All right, welcome to you both. Eugene, we just heard the president bring up the conservative boogeyman, socialism. Is this a preview of what will be one of his major talking points as we enter the 2020 campaign cycle?
Absolutely. We can expect the president and Republican lawmakers across the board to argue that Trump will protect America from socialism. This is in part because of the popularity of lawmakers like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from New York, but more specifically the policies that she is promoting that have gained popularity among the American people. There's real fear that if this becomes more widespread within the Democratic Party and independent voters, that the ideas that Trump is proposing will not make him victorious in 2020, and so obviously we're going to see the GOP push back on the idea that socialism or ideas that are more closer to socialism than conservatism could make America great again.
Anita, what do you think?
I definitely think so. It got a lot of attention last night, but actually on the campaign trail for the midterms, President Trump started talking about socialism, several weeks before the election. So it sort of popped into some of his campaign rally speeches, and I think he thought it was well received in those, at those rallies, so kept using it. But definitely, I think that, after he saw some of the people some of the Democrats who won and some of the things that they were talking about, I definitely think that he thinks this is something that he can talk about going forward. He's going to have his first campaign rally of 2019 next week in Texas, and I wouldn't be surprised if we heard that again.
So speaking of 2020, CBS Evening News anchor Jeff Glor interviewed Vice President Mike Pence, and here's his response to a question about the 2020 election.
There's at least 6 declared Democratic candidates for 2020 already. We could see 20 or more. Who poses the biggest challenge to you and the president in a re-election campaign? Well,
I haven't seen one that proposes much of a challenge to the president, to be honest with you, Jeff. But look, it's a free country.
None of them are intimidating or concern you at all?
No. Look, I have seen this president during the campaign in 2016 and over the last 2 years, one day after another, delivering on the promises that he made to the American people. We rebuild our military. We restored the arsenal of democracy. Cut taxes, rolled back regulations, and now more than 5 million new jobs created, including 600,000 manufacturing jobs that the last administration said we couldn't expect manufacturing to come back in this country at this level again. Principled conservatives pointed to our courts at every level, and a president that's literally fighting every day to keep the promises that he made to the American people.
So, Anita, what are you hearing? Are people at the White House expressing that much confidence internally as the vice president does here?
Well, I think the vice president has to say that, right? He can't say anything else. But the people that we hear that they are most concerned with are people that might appeal to sort of the Midwestern states and states that President Trump felt very good about winning last time that Hillary Clinton didn't win, Michigan, some of those states. And some of the names that I've heard are Senator Amy Klobuchar. It has that kind of, might have that resonate in those types of places that they're thinking about. It's very interesting to watch which candidates President Trump criticizes, right? So he's criticized Senator Elizabeth Warren a lot, but we actually hear that he's less worried about her and more worried about other people. So it might be that he criticizes those that he's not worried about. So we should continue to kind of see what he says. As I mentioned before, he's also going to Texas, to El Paso, right in Beto O'Rourke's stomping ground, and he is considering running for president. So it'll be very interesting to see if he talks about him at that campaign rally.
So
the candidate.
Oh, go ahead, Eugene.
The candidate that I hear, or potential candidate that I hear, that Trump and White House advisors are most concerned about is Joe Biden. We know that President Trump was victorious because he won independent voters and people who did not have a track record of backing Republican lawmakers. There's a real belief that Joe Biden can win independent voters, especially in some of these states that Trump won, that Republican lawmakers, or should I say candidates, don't have a history of winning, like Pennsylvania, which is Joe Biden's home territory. He really can connect with white working class voters in ways that other Democrats who are running right now cannot, and who are looking for someone other than Trump. We know that Trump has lost support among many people within his base, including white working class voters and white evangelicals, since the midterm election, and these voters are looking for someone new. And Trump knows that. And I think when you look at that interview, Mike Pence knows it as well, considering how much he stuttered when answering the question.
So Massachusetts Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren apologized today for identifying herself as, quote, American Indian when registering for the bar in Texas. Anita, she's one of the president's favorite targets. How do you think this latest controversy might affect her candidacy?
I actually think that reporting was pretty significant because the other times that we've seen, you know, that she's tied herself, or we thought she tied herself to, you know, being Native American or having some Native American heritage, she kind of said, well, she didn't really answer, and we weren't sure if she was doing it or if an assistant was doing it, or even, you know, I think Harvard was one of those places, or if Harvard just kind of did that themselves. It was never very clear about it, very clear. This actually made it clear. This is something that she did, and she did tie herself, and she did put that down, and it wasn't anyone else. And so when she came out and apologized, I mean, now we understand what her role was, and she's apologizing for it. I'm not sure, though, that it really resonates, that nuance really resonates with a lot of people across the country. They may know about the controversy, they now know she's apologizing, and you know, they might have formed their opinion already either way.
So I spoke to Oregon Democratic Senator Jeff Merkley earlier, and I asked about his 2020 plans. Let's listen to some of that.
Well, I've been very clear that I've been exploring it. I'll make a decision by the end of the quarter.
And what factors are you weighing?
There are three mega issues we face. The first is the corruption of our Constitution by gerrymandering and voter suppression and dark money. They've turned our government into government by and for the richest Americans, the most powerful, the most privileged, not government we the people. The second is taking on carbon pollution and climate chaos, which is doing devastating things in my state and across America and across the world, and it has to be addressed now. And the third is strengthening the investment in families, in housing, in healthcare, in education, and living wage jobs.
So, Eugene, no commitment from Senator Merkley, but he gave us some insight into what his campaign would look like. Does that platform set himself apart enough from 2020 candidates who have already gotten their names out there?
You know, he mentioned some topics that have been quite popular with candidates, but he's one of the few people who has actually mentioned three different topics, at least I heard, that will bring together different segments of the Democratic Party. Voter suppression, which is very popular among people of color, which are largely represented in the base. The struggle that many Americans are having to get in the middle class, which is across the board a challenge that many Americans have suggested they've had in the heartland as well as some of the big cities. And lastly, climate change, which is something of significance to a lot of millennial voters, one of the largest voting blocs in the Democratic Party, and that they want to see become more of a central issue on the left. And so I think he definitely appears to have a good ability to bring together just so many different groups. Whether or not he'll actually run, and we'll see him move forward with that, I guess we'll have to wait until next week.
Yeah, it's getting pretty crowded on the Democratic side. Eugene Scott and Anita Kumar, thanks to you both.
Thank you.
Thanks.